Okay, my friends, the supreme shocker du jour about Quetzalcoatl, who everybody knows has been following me for years. I've been talking about him. He's right here on the East Coast, runs all the way up. It's the feathered serpent, and this is his headdress. Now, I started to think about Quetzalcoatl. There he is again, that's him, and the weather patterns and so forth that come right off his headdress. Is Tornado Alley, and I started looking. I did a video about the feathers and the effect, and he is the god of wind and rain. All right, now he's also the god of the Mesoamericans, and he's portrayed as eating giants. And this is exactly what he looks like on the East Coast. Now, it came to me, you don't read about that stuff in the Bible or any of the, Holy Land texts, so Egyptian, Mesoamerican. I mean, they're totally separate. Let's just go with that. However, as I started looking into this, Quetzalcoatl is almost a mirror image of Christ. And he's got all the same attributes about being holy and from God, actually literally a God, and he's associated to Venus, as I say Jesus is as well. And they talk about, in these ancient texts, they talk about him returning to earth, and they know he's going to come back, just like they're waiting for Jesus to come back. And they thought he did come back when Cortez arrived on his ships, all fancy and everything. They said, wow, look at this. That must be Quetzalcoatl. They just gave him everything. He came in and just destroyed everything. So they had this deep, deep, deep religious belief that their leader, Quetzalcoatl, their god, was coming back. And they said, you've come back basically from the sky, back to your earthly mat, to take up your throne. Here's the keys to the castle. Whew. Now, I'm going to show you a couple things about this. What do they say about Quetzalcoatl? What is written about him? The name Quetzalcoatl comes from Nahuruta and means precious serpent. Quetzal feathered serpent. In the 17th century, Chicxulite, a descendant of Aztec royalty. So this guy, Chicxulite, an historian of the Nahua people, he studied everything. Quotation said, Quetzalcoatl in its literal sense means serpent of precious feathers, but in the allegorical sense, wisest of men. That's what they're looking at, Quetzalcoatl, and they say he was their god. And they were waiting for him, just waiting for him to come back. And then they just thought Cortez was him, and that was the end of him. I got to be honest with you, my friends. What I'm seeing now, I think Christ was also Quetzalcoatl. As a god, he could be as many things as he wanted to be at the same time, I would imagine. He could represent himself to the Mesoamerican people almost exactly the same. The morning star, Venus. He was the god, he was the wisest one, he was the one that, he was their god. And he was sent to earth by the Father of all. So he was the son, basically almost identical from a really skinny surface. I haven't gone deep yet. And again, this is what I'm going to do. You're going to come with me or take for whatever you want. But I had not considered that possibility. It just never occurred to me. But once I see the similarities of what he was and what he was spoken of, and being Venus and everything, and I believe Jesus was Venus. Now, could he have come and appeared to the people in, the Middle East as Jesus, as a regular person-sized person, Jesus, and to the Mesoamericans as Quetzalcoatl? I mean, when you see him, and you see how big he is. It's very, 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 very confusing. But they show him here eating a person. Now, how big was that person? If you see him on the East Coast, here he is right here. He's up the whole East Coast. That person would be like out in here somewhere. That's just, it's impossible basically, but he is there. Now, how does that relate to these codexes of him eating people? And he was the god of wind and rain and all that, and it's because of his feathers, and they create Tornado Alley right up through here. What did they write about him? What can we see about him? What can we infer between the two religious regions? Let's go with that. There was an ocean between it. Nobody knew that stuff was here, at that side of the ocean. So could Christ have come to both places? Basically at the same time, because I see they're talking about 1400 BC, somewhere in that area. And apparently that was when Venus almost hit Earth. And I say Venus was likely Jesus. And in a literal body form, like a baby, born from Jupiter, the feared god Jupiter, from the red spot, shown this many times. It approached Earth, all recorded in the ancient texts. Velikovsky did all the research and recorded everything. Everybody had the same story. A fiery comet came towards Earth, caused massive destruction, and wiped almost all the life on Earth out. And that was like 1500 BC. That's where Velikovsky puts it. And to me, that was a Triassic, the red bed, which was all the boiled flesh, because it boiled the oceans. Then on top of that, the gray clay, and then on top of that, the black cap. The red bed was the boiled out, bloody, fleshy skin and tissue, muscle and so forth, and settled as the red bed, which is mud. And that's all mud is flesh. This eroded. So you got the red bed, then on top of that you got the gray clay organs, and you know, my goose here, Caesar, with his feathers on his head and everything. So all of that stuff ended up laying on that gray clay area, and then above that the fallout from the impact and all the ash and the volcanism and burning and everything just combusted, burnt literally almost all the oxygen off the planet. And according to Velikovsky, after this they had recorded they could not start fires. They didn't have enough oxygen to really make the fires go. I guess they could start them, but just barely. So there was not enough heat coming out of it. You need more oxygen. The more oxygen you get, like a bellows, the hotter it gets. Well, there was no oxygen. And there was a problem. And then they called it the Great Oxygenation or something now. They're talking about, well, yeah, all of a sudden the oxygen started just happening. No. Everything was wiped out and burnt off the face of the planet, basically burned. And then the plants started to come back and create the oxygen. Yes. And now it's at about 20%. Back then it was like almost zero. And I believe that relates to the copper, the bronze, and the iron age. The copper age, they couldn't get hot enough to make anything better than copper, which is, it doesn't take a whole lot of heat. Then you got the bronze age, where you got copper and tin and so forth mixed together. And that takes a little more heat, and you get a little better toughness. And then the iron age takes a lot of heat to make iron, and then they had bellows and all that, but it's just getting more and more oxygen in the atmosphere. So anyway, there's a lot to talk about, but these are the weather patterns that Quetzalcoatl is creating today, to this very day. Tornado Alley. Oh, this is just over the top. Listen to this. Quetzalcoatl is the feathered serpent. Listen to what he is. The god of life, of light, of wisdom, Lord of the day and the winds, and the ruler of the west. The east is the Middle East. The West is us, is in the United States and Mesoamerica and all that. Two separate gods, two separate regions, separated by an ocean. They didn't know each other existed at that particular time. He was basically identical to Christ, as far as I can see, and he was related. Listen to what it says about him. Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, is a deity, which means a god, in Aztec culture and literature. Among the Aztecs, he was related to the wind, to Venus, which I say, in my opinion, Christ was Venus. Also to the sun, which I believe is the ultimate god of our solar system. The sun is the place where it gives out light of its own accord, is what Jesus said. We come from the light, which is a place where the light is given off of its own accord. He was also the god of merchants, arts, crafts, knowledge, and learning. He was also the patron god of the Aztec priesthood and one of several important gods in the pantheon. All right, these are the names. They're very hard to pronounce. The two other gods represented by the planet Venus are, whoever that guy is, Ally and the god of rain, and Scroochlu Sipachkanalap and his twin. I can't pronounce these names. I tried to. Anyway, forget about it. I mean, when you start listen to this. I'm telling you, this is amazing. They found all these kind of stuff. They had the codexes and all kinds of carvings and statues and everything going way back to the Olmecs, I think it was, back to like the 1400s BC era. Now, animals thought to represent Quetzalcoatl include resplendent quetzals, rattlesnakes, meaning serpent, crows, macaws, in his form as Eklukla. He is the wind, and is represented by spider monkeys, ducks, and the wind itself. In his form as the morning star, Venus. In his form as the morning star, Venus. Jesus said, I am the morning star. And I say Jesus is Venus. He is also depicted as a harpy eagle. They're giving him all kinds of looking things. Well, that's fine. I'm going to do whatever they want. But if he was the morning star, that's a whole other issue, which is Venus. Jesus said exactly the same thing. Now, in Mazatec legends, astrologer Dial, who is also represented by Venus. Venus is a big deal. Bears a close relationship with Quetzalcoatl. So they probably got these two mixed together. Who knows? This goes way back, and we didn't understand them at all until Cortez came around and destroyed their culture and everything. But it goes back, I've seen it going back to 1400 or so BC. And I think I might have showed you this before, but here's what it says. The name Quetzalcoatl comes from this culture here, which is the Mexicano language, or by some definitions, a group of languages of the Uto-Aztecan language family. All right? There's about 1.7 million people still speak this, most of whom live mainly in central Mexico and have smaller populations in the U.S. Now, precious serpent, 17th century, this guy, a descendant of Aztec royalty. All right, so he was of the Aztec royalty. They passed all this stuff down in the royal realms. It just comes one right after the other. They have libraries, and they have, educators, and they have people that carry these things forward. And he was one of them. And he wrote that Quetzalcoatl is literal sense means serpent of precious feathers, but in allegorical sense, wisest of men. And then they go on and on. They show Quetzalcoatl being here with his feathered serpent. They show them all kind of blocky looking in some of them, some codexes. This one I've got to look into, the Codex Televersus, whatever that is one of the finest surviving examples of Aztec manuscript painting, holds the earliest written evidence of earthquakes in the Americas. Its Latinized name comes from whatever, they say it's produced in the 16th century, and that could be. I have no idea about any of this stuff. I do know that I can see, and nobody in that time ever, there's no possible way that they could have known that Quetzalcoatl was here and this big and just laying right here. There is no way when they drew those codexes of this back, I don't know, the 17th century, 1600s or something like that, they drew those pictures. That comes out of one of their codexes. That's not a coincidence. They got his beards, they got his headdress, they got his feathers coming fluting way up there. The neck comes around. There is no difference between what I showed you and this is where all the wind patterns come right up his head too. That's Tornado Alley. Right out of it comes right in here, and this is all feathers. Now, does it force the air come down this way and start to circulate? I don't know, but this is where you always see it. That's all nothing but feathers in there, and there's a lot of them, and they're very fluty looking. See, these are feathers. Basically like that. Takes a while for it to home in. But they're all over in this area, and that's because it's Quetzalcoatl's head. Those are all feathers. There's a couple up here that really, like this. I mean, they're all over here, but you can see them quite easily. Watch right here. You see the top here? Exactly the same. These are the barbules. Here's what a feather looks like. Those little things, those little fuzzy things coming down the side, they're called barbules. Just one of these little tiny bits in between here is just ramus. The big thing in the center is the raucous. And those little fuzzy jobbers coming off of the ramus is the fuzzy jobbers here. And that's exactly what we were looking at here. These are the little fuzzy jobbers. This is the, I forget what they call them, the ramus or whatever it is, right down the middle. The barbules. And this is all, and it goes all the way up the East Coast. So it is what it is. You have to accept what the actual evidence is. And all the way up here at the end, where his feathers end, are feathers. It's just the end of the feathers. All right, that's not tectonic plate folding and so forth like they say. These are feathers, and the creature was the feathered serpent. Now, was he Jesus Christ? Separately from the other? At this point, I don't know anymore. I don't know what to think. But it says he was the morning star. He's Venus. He was the one that came from God. He was their God. They welcomed him back as their God. They expected him to come back just like they expect Jesus to come back. And it's very, very, it's very confusing. I got to be perfectly honest with you, but there is no question in my mind. Nobody can deny this. This is his actual throat. This is where he spits stuff out. All right, there's his throat. It collapsed, just like they all collapse. Typhon did the same thing. Here's his throat, runs all the way back up, all the way back up. You see it? All the way back up, and wraps right around here and comes down, and then comes right down around, all the way up the East Coast. And Typhon has the same thing. He's got his throat, only Typhon's throat collapsed. Well, they both collapsed, but this is a river. Typhon's is the Drach River, but it's dry. Drach means dragon. This is Quetzalcoatl's beard, seen in the codexes. And we know about Typhon. Right there, same thing. Here's Typhon. And he's in the desert, and he's gigantic too. Now, this is on the other side of the ocean. I just don't know what to think, to be perfectly honest with you. But he's attacking the fish, just like it says in Apollodorus. Now, all of the texts that I was reading was like Ovid and Hesiod, and they were talking about Zeus. And, you know, Zeus was the god of this realm at that time. Zeus was the god, and I believe Jesus was Zeus's son. It appears to be. And Zeus was not like, Zeus was, he was a sexual god. According to all the ancient texts, he was the guy that had sex with everybody that he could find. And that was written about too, that there was sexual gods. And as far as I'm concerned, he had to be the guy, according to what they wrote about Zeus, who was Jupiter, and giving birth to Venus, who was the morning star, and Venus almost hitting Earth as a vengeance against Earth. Well, not a vengeance necessarily, but just to wipe out the crazy creatures that Zeus himself had created with his sexual exploits. He had to clean the surface of the Earth, and he did, of the gigantic giants. And whether this is the remnants, I don't know. But I do know I have giants that were the remnants, and they are right on top of that Triassic layer. So we have two separate situations going on. We've got dragons to the east of us, dragons to the left, stuck in the middle with you. Dragons to the east, dragons to the west. And Quetzalcoatl was the ruler of the West. That's what it said. He was the ruler of the West. Strange, strange times, my friends. And the video I just did showed the feathers, and they're just gigantic. These are little bits and barbules of the feathers. The feathers that these guys were climbing on were like hundreds of feet straight up in the air. I have one here. This is a piece of feather. It's 3 inches thick. You see, it came right off of there. And I think it looks to me like it was a turkey feather. You see it? That's one side of the feather right there. And that's the other side. And these are the little barbules. See it? I think it's like a turkey feather. It's just, look at it. I don't see much of a difference, do you? And he broke one piece off here and said, it's right on the side of the highway. It's just laying there. Nobody's ever... You see this? This is claimed to be feathers on this 130 million year old fossil still contain traces of color. Well, first of all, not 130 million years old. This is in the gray clay. All right, and it's got color, yes. Some of them still have actual blood running out of it. I imagine there's some bloody spots in this because it's well preserved in the gray clay of the Great Flood. Basically like my stuff was. This is the gray clay, and that died laying in that layer. All right, I just found this interesting. You see, this giant's pushing a boat with a bunch of normal-sized people, or whatever. The giants were very, very much bigger than this. But look at the the way the head is and so forth. Now, here's another giant here. I think that probably was where the head dress was that continued back here. And of course they're giants and you've got little people doing things for them. This one here was cleaning somebody's feet, washing the guy's feet. Now, this, another one here. Now, look at this. These appear to be starving giants. And they have that head set up like that one was pushing the boat. Have like, I don't know whether that's their head or hair or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. They're starving to death. Now, there was a time when there was nothing for them to eat because they ate everything man had, and then they were starving, so they ate man. And that's when God, Zeus, Jupiter stepped in with Jesus to come down and wipe them off the face of the planet. That's what it was. That's the way I'm taking the text. I could be wrong, but that's the way I'm reading it. Now, could this be that particular time they're starving giants? Looks like they're starving to me. Okay, consider this. As I have shown you, all of these giants are anatomically similar to human beings. They're, they've got shoulders and arms and legs, and they're basically the same looking size, only much, much bigger. So what would that indicate if we were looking at this? This is, they both lived at the same time. As you can see, they're cleaning the guy's feet. Now, these are the steps for the giants. I calculate there, let's go 12 feet from top to bottom, 12-foot step. So they go step, step, step up 12 feet. Now, these are for the little people. All right? And they can get over into these steps to clean them probably and do whatever they had to do to them. But the little people would go up these little steps. I think you can see that. There's a difference between the two. All right, now, so of a 12-foot step, I measured the steps here in my shop. 8 inches per step to go up. I got 3 steps going up to the next level. Now, and I think that's pretty average. Let's go 8 inches. So here's the calculations. We got 12 feet for one step. All right, it's 12 inches to a foot, so that's 144 inches from here up to here, 144 inches. If you took an 8-inch step and divided it into 144, you get 18. All right, 18 of an 8-inch step would give you that 144-inch one step here. So we got 18 8-inch steps. Now, that means I'm going by the step being 18 times bigger than what we have, so I would say the guy's going to be 18 times bigger than us. Anatomically, he's the same, so if he had a comfortable step at 12 feet, he would be 18 times bigger than us, which indicates that he would therefore be approximately 110 feet tall. All right, so the guy would be 110 feet tall walking up here, and we'd be, whatever size the normal people are. Now, I have, as I will show you, a 3-inch fingertip on my property. And I had a DNA tested, and it is human, and it still has the fingerprints and fingernail. My fingertip is 1 inch long, approximately. All right, so that's 36 times bigger. This is 18, that's a half. So we'd be twice that. My guy would be 200 plus, 215 feet or so. Because it's 36 times, 3 feet, and normally you got 1 inch. So 36 inches and 3 feet means 36 times bigger than us, gives you over 200 feet tall. And I'll show you what I'm talking about, why I can say it. And it's DNA tested, and it's anatomically exact. All right, this is the fingertip. It's 3 feet long from the very back here to the very front of the fingernail. And that is a fingernail. You see, you can't really see this part here. It's a little bit eroded. But here's the fingernail. It comes all the way up around this way. Now, there's it delaminated a piece of the top of the fingernail. So that's really how thick the fingernail was originally. But you know how your fingernails are, they got layers. And some of it's flaked off. But this was the fingernail. Just take your time and look at it. It's actually very nicely trimmed. I was surprised. This is the pad on the back of your fingers where the bones meet the next bone so that they rock on that pad and they don't erode the actual bone. So we have the fingernail nicely coiffed. We have the little pad that sits in between. It's cartilage. It's a keratin. I don't know exactly what it's made of, but it's a cushion. And then you have your vein and your artery. And this piece right here that's missing was not missing when I found this. But I needed to get blood out of it to get a DNA sample. Now, fingertips and toes are just saturated with blood. They're the terminus of the blood. It comes out, comes down, and then webs over and comes back. And it's literally saturated, just saturated with blood. So I had to get underneath because other than that, it was turned to stone, real tough stone. Because skin is just tough and it's thick, and I'll show you that in a second. But when I whacked it with the, hammer, it was a big, heavy hammer. I think maybe like an 8-pound hammer. Bam! And it just popped off. I was surprised. I thought it was going to split, and it didn't. And what popped off was this. This is the piece right here. And that's actually, I guess it was right there. There's the curve. Something like that. But this is the actual fingerprints. The fingerprints start right away. That's the fingerprints right there. And that's the 2 sweat pores. All right, so this is the curve right here. That's how this was when I smacked it. It popped off. This is not fractured. This is just skin popped off. These are fractured. That's that coating right there. That's that texture. That's from a fractured stone, fractured skin actually. This is just popped off because grip skin, which is what you have on your fingers and your toes, pops right off. And here's what it looks like. Right here. That's what grip skin looks like. And that's what this is. It just flaked right off. It just peels right off like that. That's the fingertip. That's the skin. Now, this is 3 feet. This is the DNA test. There was 3 samples. All right, 3 samples done. 2 of them were giants. 1 of them was our size. A lung and a 36-inch tip and a mud tip. Another one, if that hand was about 3 to 4 feet wide. All 3 of them came back as human. And this was a very serious test, and they did negative controls on all of them. They all came back negative controls, no problems. They did this certain types of elutions and so forth. Excellent quality DNA was obtained from the 36-inch tip and the lung using so-and-so. And it was Homo sapien mitochondrial cytochrome B and D-loop region from they're Homo sapien, both of them, the lung and the 36-inch tip. And this was all the CTAG little amino acid things. And this was a certified test by a certified lab. And the guy was excellent to work with. And I know it didn't go well for him because they don't like this kind of stuff being presented. So I know he doesn't do it anymore, but I really thank him for doing it. He did a fabulous job. And that's what we have. So what I'm showing you was the grip skin right there and the sweat pores popped right off, and underneath they're saturated with blood. See that? Inside the fingertips you get all the blood you want. One side comes down is the artery side, coming back is the vein. One's red, one's black. The red runs right out because the red blood stays fluid for literally forever. The black turns hard and black. So don't forget, this is DNA tested. I drilled down into the rock and got good DNA. It was never exposed to anything. I was very careful the way I did it. It was not contaminated. He said it was excellent quality and it was dense because I went right into the vein. Artery. Now, this is the fingerprint piece that broke off. Up here is where the fingernail was. And very close to your fingernail is your fingerprints. Those are sweat pores. And this is the underside of this piece. That's how thick this is, the skin. All right, my thumb is the width of one fingerprint ridge. Those two are sweat pores, and you know it's just coming out here. Now, that was attached and just popped right off when I whacked it. And again, it would pop right off of this thing right here. And that's the whole fingernail. I mean, it's just absolutely flawless. And I've got a bigger stuff than that around here. This right here, I don't know if it's bigger, but this is a 2-inch wide hair follicle. I think this is bigger than what that is. And I have fingerprints from another one that's way bigger than this one. I mean, the creatures were absolutely gigantically enormous. And people can't accept it. But this is why it had to be wiped off the face of the planet. And that was why they had these 2 sets of steps. Because they had them for giants and they had them for regular people. My guy would have to have 2 of these at least. He's twice as big. So instead, he'd be going 2 steps at a time. He'd be jumping up. Those are for the little people. Okay, so you may say, Roger, why would all the plumbing come off the top of the heart? Which is this plumbing right here. You get down to the valves, which are the valves. And you see them in these hearts that are in space. This right here is the tendon. And it attaches to the muscle, so it has a place to grab into. These are the colors of blood. And what happens is this pops right off, and it just pops right off here. And you say, well, why would that happen, Roger? Well, it's called iron banding. I think I already explained it, but I will again, and here it is right here. You've got blue is the used blood vein. Red is the pumped up blood. It's got the oxygen, extra oxygen. They oppose each other. It's called iron banding. This is a heart too. It's all iron banded and broken up. Now there's your valves are up here and up here and up here, but that's the structure of the heart. Why is it all broken apart like this? You see the black? The black is really blue. Black in mud fossils is from the vein. The red is from the artery. Now you can only see here and there, but there's artery in between the two black. The blacks really cause most of the banding, and that's what all this is about. But you see the red in between the black? It's mostly the black pushes the red away, and it just snaps right off. From here, it pops right off. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that. This is it. I've shown the evidence to support what I'm saying. I have the DNA tests, the CAT scans, the specimens, the history, the chemistry, everything. So I love you all. Thank you for watching. Please get a hold of your state representatives, your congresspeople, senators. I didn't get any response from Chris Murphy, who was my senator. All I got was something saying how they were going to try to stop and get more money for education. I said, we got a problem with education. And they, oh yeah, no, that's because we need more money. No, it isn't. It's because you won't pay attention to the honesty of the truth. And that's my senator. I didn't get any response from Chris Murphy, and I'm not happy about that. So, you know, I don't think anybody's going to stand up for you. You have to stand up for yourself and hope you can get somewhere, but that hasn't happened for me. All right, anyway, I love you all. I'd like to see this straightened out and we get some truth and reality in our life. It doesn't matter that you have to accept what I present, but when I present evidence and DNA tests, and CAT scans, and specimens, and chemistry, and history, and every single culture in history had the same story. And when the Triassic layer is in my backyard exposed, the best Triassic in the world is in Middletown, Connecticut, on my property. And I just go and pick this stuff up and finding new species and everything. This was pre-flood foot, from what I call a no-toe. It still had a regular tibia and a fibula, but the fibula just falls off. I drill holes in them to get the DNA. Nobody will test the DNA anymore because they're afraid of academia. So I'm just going to leave it at that. All right, Trump, Musk, please, let's get something done about this.